Here's a showcase of the next app we made inside of Comfy UI, and it's my favorite too. This particular app is very useful and will come in very handy. It's one of the main ones that I want you to use. You'll see right away why this particular one can be so useful. What's required is an input image along with the prompt. And then of course we have our character selection. What it does is recreates one of our characters using the reference from just some other image. The way it's recreated is through a depth map. And exactly what that is will become really clear upon demonstration. So for example, this is another good looking image that is also AI. This is an AI image, but we're going to use that as part of the input on this workflow. You can drag and drop or just load the image and select it manually. I'm going to set this character to be Maya, and I'm going to prompt this to be Maya is walking with a group of people in a futuristic space station. When we hit run, the first thing that's going to be created is a depth map. This is what your depth map is going to look like. It's almost like it just sees a bunch of silhouettes along with the background, which will be generally some shade of black. Stuff in the foreground is going to be some shade of white. And now based off this depth map and recreated an image based off our character and our prompt, I would say it did a really good first job, but this is one of the quirks that can happen. You'll notice that people are also wearing glasses, and we even have a Maya knockoff here in the background. So there are a couple different ways around that. One of the ways is I'm going to add into the prompt that it's only this young blonde lady in the center of frame, and everywhere else is going to be someone different. So this took about 3 tries, but based on a better prompt, we have a more acceptable image to work with. The only thing is that her face could use more refinement. But don't worry, we have a workflow for just that. Here's another image. It's actually just of me in my living room, and I'm going to make this Van Lorden. And now we have our new image. So the input image could be an AI image, it could be a real image found on Google, or it could even be one you take of yourself or someone else so that you can get the exact right pose and position that you want. In this video, I'm going to showcase one more. So we're going to close this, and remember, you can just hit close anyway. You don't have to hit save. It's better for you to not hit save. So this app is also very important. It's called the Face Detailer. There also in parentheses says mask. And this is the only workflow we have that utilizes a mask. I'll explain what that is. So we created this image with the ControlNet app, but there's a few issues with the face. It looks close to Maya's face, but not quite. And we have an excellent app that fixes that. So we're going to drag this into the image input. And then there's this white button that you have to hit. This workflow will not work unless you hit this button and are greeted by this new interface. This is a very simple to use interface. All this does is create a mask, which is represented by this darker color that you can paint in. And it can just be a quick brush stroke. It doesn't have to be highly detailed. Then all you do is hit save and then hit close. It might take a second to update, but you'll notice the image kind of get black on where we marked it. So what this does is actually, in a sense, upscale the image, but only the parts that we masked off. So only the parts that are highlighted with this sort of black paint. And it will upscale to the character that we have selected. So let's choose Maya. And we don't always have to add a description, but in this case, I'm just going to say black glasses and a neutral expression. I'm going to set the lore strength to 1.0 and the amount of noise. So there's a low, medium, high, ultra. And all that means is that if we hit low, it's only going to put a little bit of effort into upscaling the face to the character we have selected. Whereas if we set it to high, it'll sort of make a high effort to do that. Depending on the image, you'll want to start with either a low amount of noise or a high amount of noise. But generally, I'll just start out with a low amount of noise. You're free to run as many generations as you need to until you get a good result. So we'll start by a low amount of noise and see if this gets it closer to where we think Maya should look like. This to me still doesn't quite look like Maya, so let's go straight to high and skip medium. We definitely have a better result, but I'm going to add in clean looking skin. And in this case, I am actually going to up the strength to the max recommended effort, which is 1.5. And after about the 4th try, we have a result that I actually like. Sometimes you get a better result by masking more of the face. For example, we could go back to the mask, and I'm going to get more of the face and the skin. Hit save. I think I'm going to try 1.3, and we'll go to ultra. It took a couple extra tries, but this actually gave me a result that is much better than our input image. Now, if we wanted to, we could even take this image, go into media assets. This will show us all the images we've created so far. We can actually take one of the most recent generations, drag this over to the input image, and then create another mask. For example, we could change this person in the foreground to also be one of our characters. So now we have Maya center in frame, but we can turn the person on the right into one of our other characters. They need to look at least a little bit like the person to start out with. So turning this person into one of our male characters might be too much of a stretch, but we could probably turn it into Terra. It's still not quite good enough, so I'm going to actually up the amount of noise to ultra. I'll add in slightly out of focus. And we get something that does look a lot like Terra, but one of the problems is that the person we started out with wasn't wearing glasses, so it still found it difficult to put glasses on. But that's something that could easily be fixed in Nano Banana. So now that we've made this image, we could use this as another input, which means we would just go to Media Assets. Right here, the top left will be your latest generation. Drag that into the input, create another mask. Let's say right here. Actually, no. And now we can add back in another character in our selection. Remember, you may need to adjust the noise amount. So this really is a cutting edge way to add characters back into an image. We've considered other ways, and certainly Nano Banana can do something similar to this. But another important use case is actually something that is an image that, say, comes out of Nano Banana. But another use case is more often we have an image that comes out of Nano Banana, but it kind of loses the likeness of our character. Now you can use that image, plug it in here, and add the likeness back in. So it's not meant to replace Nano Banana, but it's a crucial tool that we can use in addition to Nano Banana. Both the Face Detailer and the ControlNet app on Comfy UI, those are two of the biggest, most useful apps that we've made in Comfy for the team. But there's still a couple more apps to go through, which we will do in the next video.